like the Spanish social club model, or even a mix between Uruguay state model and Spanish social club model.
Explain that social club model. Not many, all of my listeners knows what that is.
Oh, it's very interesting. This is the one that I've got quite a lot of faith in personally. We've got a social club movement in this country as well, called the United Kingdom Cannabis Social Clubs, UKCSC. And what it is, in Spain, it started under a constitutional loophole. They realised that they could get together these collectives. So if you're in a town, you can get a few people together and you can grow and distribute your own cannabis between you, which, again, is just forms a very rudimentary Spanish social club. That then took off and started going into a bit more mainstream. So if you go into... I've never personally been to Spain, but I know a lot of people that have. So you can go into a club or a bar and there'll be a little doorway that is very discreet, which takes you into a back room, and that's where the social club model is. And they've got all the cannabis there, so it's very discreet, it's out of the way, it's not intrusive to people that have got sensibilities against it. And it's just that, it's a cooperative, it's a selective group that have gone, right, we're going to pay a certain amount to be into this, we're going to be autonomous between us, and we're just going to get on with it. And that's what Spain did. And we've started to do that in this country. Obviously, we can't do it legally in this country, but there's a movement here to get that softer regulation in place, which means that the consumers know the strain potency, they know they can test their own, they can set their own pricings, they can tag their plants as well, so they know what genetics are in place. If you put this in the hands of the people and the consumers that know cannabis, and let's face it, I think we both know there are a lot of people out there that do know cannabis. Why wouldn't that be a good regulatory model?
You know why we have a regulatory model? Because alcohol stronger than 22% have to be sold at the state monopoly. So what we are talking about in Norway, like we want cannabis in that model too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We have a ban on commercial for alcohol. It's also worked fine. So that is the Norwegian model. We have state shops, usually in every city there is. They tried to limit it 20 years ago. That only felt the more smuggling. The smuggling is not that big now. So they have state shop. Is that a model? Like we have that in Norway and Sweden already. Just apply to also using cannabis. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, I think you can learn from previous health success. Health success in this country is tobacco. We've lessened tobacco through education, through setting a pricing limit, which some people will argue that it's, again, unfair on the poor because you're pricing things out of their level of what they can pay. And it's a difficult balance, because how do you set a pricing limit that makes you realise that actually this isn't good for me, therefore I have to consider if I want to pay that much to do something that's fundamentally against my own judgment on health. But at the same time, not persecute the people that are on the lower socioeconomic classes anyway. But tobacco, as a health policy, has been a success here because of taxation, because of plain packaging, because of we've limited the marketing of it. You could apply that to cannabis easily as well. You could set minimum pricing. You can set a plain packaging in the sense that, again, it doesn't have to be on the high street branding in front of children. It can be discreet. We can set the rules on it. And if you're starting from scratch on a regulatory process, you can do what you want with it to make it how it works for the community. It just makes sense.
We're going to talk about, because you also have co-produced a movie about it.
Yes.
Cultural High. It's for everybody who doesn't know it. It's on Netflix in Norway and hopefully many other countries.
Yeah, I think it's in Canada, America, in this country, in the UK. I think most of Europe, I think, has got it. But yeah, I was one of the associate producers. I basically did the UK side of things, where I've got Professor Nutt involved, Howard Marks, bless Howard Marks, and also Richard Branson, people like that. And we had great success with it, and I was quite pleased as well, because it was because of being distributed on Netflix, and we had a theatrical run as well. We managed to get new ears into the discussion. We managed to get people that just generally don't care. Once you see these figures that are involved, again, Joe Rogan is big in America, so he attracts an audience. Snoop Dogg was in it.
Oh yeah, Snoop Dogg. Yeah, I don't think he's the best commercial for legalization.
What the interesting thing, because this is again another area that can be quite contentious, is the people that get involved to advocate reform.
Well, I think banned from Norway for 2 years because he tried to smuggle in marijuana into Christian.
Oh really? Actually, yeah, there was something similar like that here as well. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he's got his own commercial brand now, hasn't he? Out in America. Yeah. But they're useful because they can bring in their following. So, prime example, there's a comedian here that we work with called Rufus Hound, and he's got 1.2 million Twitter followers. Well, that's access to 1.2 million people that we wouldn't ordinarily have just because he's in the film. So it's useful just getting a new people in like that. So if you can get public figures that are willing to get involved, they bring an audience. And then also,
I was asking you, how did not anybody knows much about the movie itself and how it come to life? Because that's very interesting. Because this was when I saw it, I thought, wow, this was a lot of work. And it was not many people who want to sponsor a movie like that. I had a friend of mine who said, yeah, I gave some money to it. So how did they get that movie to become a movie?
There's a film called The Union, The Business Behind Getting High, which you can find on YouTube. And it was, I think, 2008, I think it was made. And it was a massive success on the internet. It was when the internet really started taking things off. It really did well for pushing it out there in public domain. And because it was a bit of an underground commercial hit, well, I'll say commercial hit, the makers of it, Adam Scorgie, Brett Harvey, friends of mine now, despite the fact that it had millions and millions of views and it did really well, the filmmakers are actually in debt because of the film, because they ended up just saying, right, we're in this for the greater good. They're not activists either. That's the thing. They don't use cannabis. They just saw an interesting story. Originally, they wanted to do an expose on the British Columbia marijuana industry in Canada. They saw that there was a big market there, so they wanted to do a bit of an expose. That then turned into a reform-leaning piece just through the way that the story was told. And they had no ambitions to go, right, we're in this for activism's sake. They just wanted to tell the story. From there, because it was such a commercial success, the public was saying, right, well, the story's even more involved now because things have happened, so can you do a sequel? And they resisted for a long, long time. But then I saw that the sequel was coming up, so we just got connected over the internet, and I said, look, there's a massive UK story within this as well, because Professor Nutt just happened, the fact he got sacked for telling the truth. So Adam, the executive producer, again, a great personal friend of mine now, he saw the potential in the UK side of things and said, yeah, right, we're definitely coming over. So they got a Kickstarter together, and I think it got funded to the tune of $250,000, I think it was.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah, it did well. And it just goes to show you the outpouring and the need to have a second film. People were really passionate about this. And it went into making. I think we made it for about 3 years. I think that it took from research stage to booking stage and then release stage. And then we released it in 2014. We had a premiere in Leicester Square, London, in the heart of our premiere. We got in the Oscar long listed as well, which is incredible.
Very incredible.
And it just goes to show that people are really interested in this discussion if you present it in the right way. I think that there's so many different facets to it and different strings that you start pulling away at one, and then another one comes loose.
Because it's very good. I've seen Netflix now have started a lot of documentaries on that. You have the Cocaine Cowboys. You have the how to become make money selling drugs and so on. So Netflix has been very good for this cause, really.
It is so useful as well. There's another one called Breaking the Taboo, which is done by Sam Branson's company, which is Richard Branson's son, Sundog Pictures. And again, brilliant documentary. I think it's 45 minutes. It's really nice and tight, and it makes a perfect case for a layman. So, and this is where people can get involved, because one of the things I imagine you get asked as well is that we're interested in discussion, but what can we do? How can we help? We just have a family night, have a film night, get people round and go, right, we're going to watch this film and then have a discussion. It takes, an hour? And then you can have that discussion around what you're passionate about, and it's all presented for you. The facts are laid out, it's all there. that's what you can do to help. Is these films are not there to just be viewed and say, yeah, I agree with that, and then move on. Get out there, organise community screenings, get people round, as I said, put Netflix on and have a Netflix and chill, as it were. You can get all of these different facets together and just go, right, we're going to actually have this discussion now.
Now I mentioned some movies, but do you have any suggestions to the listeners of the kind of some movies they have to see? Definitely,
so I definitely recommend Breaking the Taboo. Also, fictionalised things work as well. So I think that Cartel Land, and I must admit, this is a strange thing to admit, is that I'm not always up on the films that are coming out. Or especially the fictionalised ones, because I spend all of my time in drug policy reform. I don't tend to like to watch them in my off time. But also, there's a great one called Cocaine Unwrapped as well, which is directed by a lady called Rachel, which I saw the premiere of in London. And again, really recommend that because it goes into the environmental impacts of eradication in Colombia. It goes into how women are disproportionately treated in prisons as well, because a lot of times women are focused on because of being couriers of drugs. They're the easy targets. So there's a lot of disproportionate levels of women in prisons in places like Colombia and Latin America. And these are all aspects that we don't necessarily always address within drug policy, of how much policies affect groups differently, so women, children, environment. These are all things that we need a discussion about as well.
I thought I was going to take that earlier, but I saw something that I will try to pick up here in the end. It's massive, but the death tolls of Mexico, I think now was over 100,000, I think, since 2007.
That's it, yeah.
I think it's more than that. If that same amount of people have been killed in terror attacks, we've been on alarm already. We've been changing politics already. Why isn't anything changing when you see the death tolls so much? You can go to Venezuela, you can go to Colombia, you can go to the American state, and the death tolls are extremely high just because of the war. Why isn't it changing?
Exactly. I wish I knew, because I kind of literally lose sleep over this, of why have we gone so far off the rails that we can't see 100,000 lives being lost in some part of the world that's pretty close to us all, you know, in some cultural sense, and yet we're still not doing anything about it. And the only thing I can put it down to is the fact that it's a complicated issue that most people don't understand yet. Yeah. And I think that's where our jobs come in, of making people realise and presenting this in a moderate way as well, not shouting, not going, look what you're doing by prohibition. That doesn't help either. We need to go, actually, look, things are really going bad here. And
I'm probably getting my anger all back, because I'm so mad right now when I see the results.
It's easy to do. I think it's instinctual to go in with anger because of just how frustrating it is, and literally how heartbreaking it is, the fact that there are so many deaths. But if you speak to an elderly person on the street, they're not going to understand it if you come straight in with shouting. If their position was already made up on drugs, that drugs are bad, then instead of having a conversation about it, their back's going to go up, and you're going to have a defence against a defence.
Yeah.
That doesn't help. So if we can just have a moderate conversation of that, this really does need addressing, and it's the way that you present the issue, I think, a lot of times, and I don't think we necessarily have got the presentation just spot on yet.
On the end of this podcast, I'm going to give you a reason to plug something, books or something you write or things you got to read or watch. You mentioned some movies, but since you're a writer, is it something you have to read? Some web places we have to visit, or to be more informed that you can recommend?
There's so much to recommend. I mean, there's so many organisations in this country that do brilliant work, like Release.org and Transform Drug Policy Foundation. And if you fancy having a read of what we do at Leap, ukleap.org, a lot of times the blogs and the articles that I write get rolled into there, so it just gives you an idea. But one of the projects that we're really excited about at the moment is a podcast that we're doing as well, called Stop and Search, which we've done cheaply, tongue-in-cheek, towards the horrible, insidious policy of stop and search in this country. Because we're a police organisation, we almost want to clutch that issue and go, hang on, we really need to speak about this. And what we're doing is audio documentaries, rolling news, also getting a public figure